Wrote this song while crewing Aaron on a 100-mile foot race through the trails in the rain and mud. How about that? Miles to go. 100 miles to go. Don't ask me why I do it, I don't know. Miles by foot. 100 miles by foot. Don't ask me why I do it, I can't stay put. Rain is a coming, can't give a fit. Rain is a coming, can't give a fit. Don't ask me why I do it, but I am legit.
Hello to all my human doings, all my endurance junkies and trail enthusiasts. Today, I record this December 30th. This podcast will launch on December 31st. I have a special, if you will, New Year's episode for everyone. Episode 46 is with Sam Reid and Kyle Curtin. Man, two awesome FKTs just went down. We're going to talk about those. Sam won Hellbender, the Hellbender 100 in 2019. We talk about that and his FKT on the Foothills Trail. He did it unsupported and broke the FKT. Sam's a good friend, a neighbor actually, doesn't live far, and training partner. So I really enjoyed this conversation with Sam. I just met Kyle. Kyle is actually an acquaintance of Sam's as well, and let me know that Kyle was going after the Pitchell FKT, the overall supported FKT, and Kyle's parents live here in Western North Carolina, as you'll hear, and he came and totally did it. He broke the Pitchell FKT, so two special conversations for you. Definitely a long episode. So without further ado, I'm going to give you Mr. Sam Reid and his unsupported FKT of the Foothills Trail. All right. As I said in my introduction, I have with me today one of my great friends, Sam Reid. Sam, how are you today?
Doing great. How about you?
I am doing quite well. I'm looking forward to our run after this podcast. Sam and I are recording remotely, just in the interest of being safe, obviously. And I always kind of like to give it a date stamp. We're recording here on December 21st. this podcast will probably come out not this week, but the following. And but so fortunate to have Sam here and all of his experiences. I'm really looking forward to talking to him about everything he's done. And so we'll get right into it. Sam, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am 38 years old. I'm originally from Minnesota. I have lived here in the greater Asheville, North Carolina area for the past about 3 years now. And prior to that, I had moved back and forth between Hawaii and Colorado for about 15 years before I had kind of landed here in Asheville. But my running background, I started running in junior high, and I ran in junior high and high school, both track and cross country. I was a decent runner, but certainly nothing spectacular. After my sophomore year of high school, I actually stopped running and didn't really run for almost 15 years. I would say in 2011, 12, 13, somewhere in that range, I started doing a lot more hiking and backpacking. And that kind of led me into starting to run again. I wanted to see more of the trail. I wanted to do more things. And so I think it was in April of 2013, I actually restarted running. And ever since then, that's kind of been a part of my daily routine. Started running ultras and been running ever since.
I always found it interesting. You said at one point too, you were a smoker, right? Didn't you smoke, or was that?
Yeah, I was actually. So in that time frame of not running for 15 years, I wasn't exactly a healthy person. I did smoke my late teens and into early and mid 20s, off and on, and probably drank more than necessary. And like I said, wasn't necessarily the healthiest person. For quite a while.
Well, I only say that because it's quite a transformation to where you are now. You've got a plant-based diet. Obviously you've run some great mileage. If you have the chance, follow Sam on Strava. Sam is very consistent. What's your average weekly mileage, Sam?
Oh man, it varies so much. If I'm just if I'm between training cycles, if I'm just doing my daily runs, it might be around 60 miles, but my Strava chart looks more like shark's teeth than like a consistent line. I mean, it's one week I might run 40 and the next week it might be 70. And when I start training more, I'm usually in the 70s. A typical training for an ultra, I'll be up above 80, maybe peak above 100 miles a week. But I would say just an average week, I'm running, 60, 70 miles, something like that.
Yeah. And Sam has a good full-time job, which requires him to travel quite a bit, but you still seem to find the time. So it's pretty incredible. Go ahead. What did you say?
No, I was just going to say, I've obviously haven't been traveling as much this year with COVID, but in prior years, I do spend a lot of time on the road, traveling both here domestically as well as internationally for work. And the work itself isn't that exciting, but it gets me to some interesting places. And I do always try to find a way to run wherever I go. And it's not just trying to fit it in. I try to use the running as a way to see new places and explore places that I wouldn't otherwise get to see if it wasn't for my job. But then I guess kind of seeing things on foot, you get a little different perspective than if you were just passing through in a car.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I enjoy hearing about when you get back from certain places, Poland and Germany, and you've been some really cool places throughout the world. So Sam's great to have as a running partner because he has some great stories to share and makes the runs go by exceedingly quick. So you got back into running. Now, when you got back into running, what did that look like?
Well, like I said, at the time, I was really more into hiking and backpacking. And I don't mean like long distance through hiking. I was doing weekend backpacking trips, 1-2 nights, just going up into the mountains, myself, solo or with my dog or something. And really running was more of a way to stay in shape for the weekend so that I could do bigger weekend adventures. But that did kind of transition back into actually running. And actually, when it was around that time that I started running, I was also a vegan at the time, and a friend of mine recommended that I read Scott Jurick's book, Eat and Run, more from a vegan perspective than from a running perspective. But I really didn't know anything about ultra running at that time. And like I said, this was spring, summer 2013, somewhere in that time frame. And I started reading his book and realized that there's this whole sport of ultra running where people are racing 100 miles. And I thought, I want to do that. And that was like instantly my goal, was that I wanted to run a 100-mile race. I didn't have any interest in running road marathons, anything like that. So like I said, that was spring and summer 2013.
Where were you?
I think I ran a 50. Oh, I was in Denver at the time. And I started running trails. I think I ran a 50K that fall, and a 50 miler a few months later. And within basically a year to the week from when I started running is when I ran my first 100 miler. And that was at the Zion 100 in April of 2014.
Oh, well, RIP Matt. That was when Matt was still race directing.
Yes, and actually, that's when I had met Matt Gunn, and I had run several of his races in the years since then as well. But yeah, and in fact, it was I would say Matt's races that kind of shaped my view of what I felt like an ultra should be, and that's really because those were the first few races I ran. But it was really a community-oriented event, and the race was really kind of secondary, and nobody really cared about who won the race or who was winning. It was more just about getting together and running and hanging out afterwards. And I really took that away. And I think that's really kind of what made me stick to the sport of ultra running rather than just accomplishing that goal of running 100 miles and saying, all right, off to the next thing.
Right. Not to get off on too much of a tangent, but we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Matt and what he did more for the our sport. Just so we don't glaze over that. Do you want to talk about Matt a little bit? You knew him pretty fairly well, having experienced his races.
Yeah, I mean, and sure. And I don't want to make it sound like we were close friends or anything. I didn't know him that well, but I had. So Matt was the race director for Ultra Adventures. He had started the series of races in the Grand Circle around Utah, which is so he'd have these races just outside of the national parks. There's one in Zion, Bryce. There was there's Antelope Canyon. There's a few others, and he was running this race series, and most of them would have multiple events, everything from like a shorter sub ultra race all the way up to a 100-mile race, and they kind of run concurrently. It was, like I said, it was his races that really got me into the sport itself of ultra running. And I know I don't think we mentioned here, but Matt passed away a couple of months ago, and so it's really sad to see that. It's definitely a big loss to our running community.
Yes. Vacation Races has since taken over Matt's races, but they implement a lot of what Matt was trying to accomplish in zero waste. If any of you have done any of the vacation races, you'll know that a lot of their, they are very into creating composting, recycling. So that was a lot of Matt's premises, and he brought a lot of that to our sport. I met Matt at the trail running race directing conference in Colorado, and he left a lasting impression on me as to how can I be more zero waste. So I certainly appreciate you touching on that for a second. And, my heart goes out to his family and all those he left behind. But so you did Bryce, and let's expound on that. How did Bryce go for you?
Bryce, not so well. So I had run Zion first. That was my first 100 miler. And then I ran a couple of others. I went back and ran Zion for the second time in 2016. So this would have been April 2016. And I had decided I was going to run Bryce like 6 weeks later, which I had never run hundreds that close to each other. And you probably shouldn't. It probably wasn't a great idea. And at that time as well, they've shifted the dates around a little bit, but it was being run in June, and June in the desert starts to get pretty hot. And I did run the first half of the race. I was running decently well. And then things just kind of fell apart. I started having some significant heat related issues and was just having terrible hallucinations. And eventually I just had to call it quits. It's one of 2 DNFs I've ever had. And it didn't finish well. But having said that, that race is just spectacular. I wouldn't hesitate at all to go back and do it again. It's so pretty. Running through, I think a lot of people are familiar with what the scenery of Bryce Canyon itself looks like with all the hoodoos, but it's actually, Bryce Canyon is a pretty small national park, but the area around it has a lot of similar scenery, and it's really just spectacular. And that's really where the race course goes. And it's just gorgeous. I really love that area of the United States.
Around the park, correct? Because they can't go through the park.
Yeah, it doesn't go into the actual park. It goes around. I don't think it like circumnavigates the park, but it's just in the region around the outside of the park. It's a really cool area.
Nice. So taking away what you found out at that race, how did you change going forward for 100?
I guess I don't think I ever tried to run 2 of them that closely together again. I also know that I'm not a hot weather runner or racer. Never have been. My other DNF was at the Hurt 100 in Hawaii. So I've probably avoided doing hot weather races. I've spaced them out a little more. But truthfully, I've never really raced for the purpose of being competitive. I just go race where I want to race, places I want to see. And so the fact that I had a DNF there, I don't know that it really impacted me all that much. I just packed up and moved on to the next one.
Nice. So you also spent time in Hawaii, which, obviously Hurt is out that way. Did you have any other attempts at Hurt?
No, just that one time. There's a lottery process to get in. I had only entered the lottery that one time. I did get into the race. I was actually sick leading into the race. I had I had strep throat, and I had 101 fever the morning of the race. But it's a lottery process, and I didn't know when I'd get in again. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. And I struggled through 60 miles with a fever and running through the jungle in Hawaii. And it was not a smart decision, but by the time I hit mile 60, I was done. Several people tried to convince me, and I had zero interest in continuing at that point. But that was my only actual attempt at the Hurt 100. I've been a part of it as a pacer and a volunteer on several occasions, but that was my only actual run at the event.
And you've also had some interesting experiences at Cruel Jewel. Do you want to touch on Cruel Jewel and what that race went down?
Yeah, you're talking about all my bad races here. No, that's all right. These are the fun ones though too.
We're gonna get to Hellbender, so we get to the shining light at the end.
No, that's totally fine. I'm joking, but it's Cruel Jewel was fun. I went into Cruel Jewel. I think this would have been 2017. I was in I'll say very good shape at the time. I felt like I was probably as fit as I had ever been. And Cruel Jewel is a tough course. For anyone who doesn't know, it's 106 miles, I believe. And it has about, what is it? I think it's over 30,000 feet of 30,000 feet of elevation gain, something like that. And it is, it's tough. And I went in with the idea that I was going to run hard the whole way. Like I really wanted to push it. I wanted to try. And I think Nicodemus Holland was the only person who'd gone under 24 hours at the time. I really wanted to see if I could. I didn't know if I could hit his mark, but I wanted to try and get in under 24. And I went for it, and I was on pace for the first 50 or 60 miles. And truthfully, I was probably going too hard above my ability level, but I didn't want to let that goal slip away. And so I just kept pushing. And I think at mile 60 or 65 or somewhere around there, I started to feel a little bit like the blow up was coming. I could feel that I was burning out. And there's this one spot on the Cruel Jewel race course that anyone who's run it knows what I'm talking about, that it would be a perfect 100-mile, like out and back course. And then for really no reason, there's this drop 3 miles down into this valley to an aid station where you turn around and go back up and join the out and back. And it adds 6 miles to the course and a whole bunch of climbing. And I got down to that aid station, and I actually just sat down for a minute, and I was in the lead at this point. I just didn't want to keep going, but I got out of there, kept on moving. I think around mile 70, 75, I started just kind of walking. I was still in the lead. I got to mile 80, and I was just toasted, and I was done. I laid down, and despite being in the lead, just took a nap. And one of the aid station workers let me use their sleeping bag that was kind of in a tent in the back. And I felt bad because I'd been running 80 miles. I was pretty disgusting. I didn't want to get somebody else's sleeping bag too terribly dirty. But at this point, I just wanted to lay down. And I did. I lay down for an hour. And I certainly felt like stopping. In that time, several people passed, of course. But someone I were at the aid station kind of convinced me to get up and keep moving, at least just go to the next aid station. And so I did. And I basically at that point at mile 80, you still have about a marathon trek across the Duncan Ridge Trail to get back to the finish line. And so I just started hiking. I started jogging little bits of it here and there. And it was the longest ultra shuffle of my life, getting across the Duncan Ridge Trail to the finish line. But I got there, and I finished the race. And so it was quite a few hours slower than what I had initially hoped for at this point. But, it's the way it goes.
That's right. No, we all have those experiences. And the reason I didn't mean to pick on the negative races, I was literally, before we started recording this, I was writing my newsletter, and I was writing about that Duncan Ridge 50K that I just did, and where I was in a physical and mental state going up the backside of Coosa. And, in comparison to what you were just saying, I felt defeated, and I was in a very negative headspace, and, I had to collect myself somehow. And I was like, that course, Cruel Jewel had defeated me. I cramped out. I couldn't continue. PDR has taken me out, I think 2 or 3 times now. So I have more DNFs than I have finishes on that darn Duncan Ridge Trail. So I knew the experience that you were going through, and like I said, it was fresh in my mind. But that said, we can then move on, fast forward and talk about Hellbender. I really felt like you put together a heck of a race, and it was obvious in that you beat the course record. You beat Carl Metzler's course record, which is, that's an accomplishment in and of itself. So fast forward to your training for 2019. Hellbender, what was going on? What did you do right? What did you feel was going on that made that such a great day for you?
Sure. Well, I think what made that the run itself a good day was the training leading up to it. I just had consistent training going into it. I had a 12-week training block, if I recall correctly, where I was above 80 miles a week every single week, hitting 10, 15, 20,000 feet of climbing per week. And just consistent week after week for essentially 3 months leading into it. And I had a couple of bigger week peaks near the end. And so going into it, I was just, my fitness was just there. And I had a lot of vertical running as well, which obviously the Hellbender course has its share of. So I felt physically prepared going into it. At the same time, the race itself was, well, for one thing, the course is spectacular. I really like the area. You did such a great job, and the entire team that was putting it on of creating a really great event, and that makes it a lot of fun. And then at the same time, just seeing friends that I know through the local running community at aid stations, running into them, kind of having people cheering you on the whole way, and feeling like you're representing the local running community at the race, just made for the whole thing to feel very. It was special. It was fun, and it just the whole race just came together, and I think it was a combination of the training and all the other kind of non-running things that made it such a fun event.
It was exciting to say the least. Seeing, Kenyon Woodard, he led for up to 80 miles, I believe. And, him being a local that, I knew, and then, Chris Brown, he was, and I'm sorry, did I mess up Chris? Is it Chris? What's Chris?
It's Chris Roberts, actually.
Chris Roberts. Sorry, Chris. Chris Roberts. Totally goofed on that one. My fault, buddy. He'll never listen to my podcast anyway. But Chris was up there. Chris and I had raced through the Beef Series in 2016 and Grindstone and all of those. So it was fun seeing all of you guys up there, and I got to see all of you come through up to the first Neils Creek aid station, and then when I got to Mitchell, you guys had already been through. And then I had to get back to the finish line and kind of get things ready back there. But I got to hear updates of you guys along the way, and it just sounded like super exciting. Like once you got to 80 and kind of took the lead, it was you. But the other thing I found interesting, you had crew but no pacer, right? You had no pacers on.
I did have a pacer for a little while. My friend Courtney, she lives in Wyoming. She was visiting, and she paced. And I actually, I didn't want to take any of my local friends be pacers. And the reason being that there's such a community effort required for this race that I felt like I've done enough 100s at this point where I didn't need the pacing support to finish the race. And so I really wanted to make sure that people were available to pace those who did need it. Maybe it was their first time running, or just being available to volunteer. And I didn't want to kind of take away from that volunteer pool to just run along with me. But my good friend Courtney, she crewed for me throughout the day. There's only like 4 or 5 spots where you can actually get crew access on the course, just because it's so remote in a lot of places. But I did take a strategy of having her pace in the middle section of the race. She started with me at, I was right around the halfway point. I can't remember what the aid station name was there, but I think it was a mile 48 or 50, somewhere in there. And my thought was, I always struggle right in that kind of early part of the second half of a race when you've run a really long ways. In this case, you've run 50 miles, but you're looking at it like, oh, geez, I've still got 50 more to go. But if I can get to mile 70, 75, well, from there, you can finish. It's just a matter of just getting yourself, just willing yourself to the finish line. But you're not going to give up at that point. And so I had a little bit different strategy of having her pace me in the middle part of the race. She was going to run from somewhere around like mile 50 to 70. She ended up spraining her ankle pretty badly about 10 or 12 miles into that, and so didn't continue on. But she did run with me for a few hours there in the middle.
That's cool. The other thing that I found interesting was in your training, and I remember our conversation because I said, do you want to go over and run some of the course? And you're like, no, I want to go in blind. You want to talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, well, and like I had alluded to earlier, I've always chosen races based on a location that I want to run, or a place that just is interesting to me. I mean, I'm not really interested in running like a race that goes along a rails to trails kind of path or something that is, I mean, I might run that on a day-to-day basis, but not necessarily somewhere I want to make as a destination for a race. And even though this was a local race, I had never run a 100-mile race in kind of my backyard before, or in a somewhere where I could sleep in my own bed and get up and go race. And I wanted to have it still feel like a destination race for me. And some people like to go out and see every section of the course and feel really prepared for it and know every inch of that course. I didn't want to. I wanted it to be a surprise. I wanted to go around every corner wondering what was next and have that be my motivation, kind of like an exploration approach to it, which is, like I said, that's how I usually race anyway. And so I wanted to maintain that feeling going into this race, even though it was local for me.
Which is awesome. So, being where we are, that side of Western North Carolina has just some climbs that we don't typically see here on the East Coast. I mean, we're talking 3 miles and, 3,000 feet of gain. How surprised were you by the course?
Not surprised by the course itself. While I hadn't physically seen it, I did study the course map and the elevation profile quite a bit going in, so that I could visualize, at least on a map, what was happening throughout the race. I knew exactly what was coming in terms of big climbs. So that part itself wasn't necessarily a surprise, but I couldn't necessarily prepare for that exactly without running it, because while it's not near where you and I live, there's certainly some good climbing, but it's not those 3,000, 4,000 foot climbs that you're going to get over in the Black Mountains. So I felt like I was physically preparing for it just by doing a lot of vert in my runs, but nothing really to mimic multiple hour climb up the side of a mountain. I just couldn't really prepare for it completely.
Sure. Well, I mean, I would say that, I mean, when you came in, I was, flabbergasted with, how fast you guys ran. I mean, you guys got in, it was, I don't remember, like 1:30 in the morning or something like that. Do you remember what time it was? Somewhere around there.
Yeah, it was something like that. I think my final finishing time was somewhere around 21 and a half hours. I don't remember the exact time, but
I think that put you around.
So yeah, it would have been, I think, 1 to 2 in the morning, somewhere in that range.
Yeah. And, as you said, you don't do this for, the fame and glamour for winning or anything like that, because you come to a finish line, you've got me and a few others that are doing the old at 1:30 in the morning, but, a campfire going and some Christmas lights. But, it was definitely, I mean, I was thrilled for you. Having gone and run, I don't know how it got to me, it was how many hours we ran together through that, but, in training, but it was great to kind of see that culmination for you. And I was so happy for you. Would you say that's your,
thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, well, would you say that's your best 100, or, do you think you had a better one?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think that's probably the race where everything came together the most. I'd had a couple other 100-mile wins in the past. Back in like 2015, I was able to get the win at Pinhoti, and that was in a crazy weather day, just pouring rain for the day leading up to it and throughout the race. And so that one was very satisfying as well, getting the win on that course. But I think this was probably the one that everything kind of came together the most. I was probably in the best physical condition I'd ever been in leading into Hellbender. And then throughout the race, I actually just felt like I ran hard the whole way. I never felt like I just kind of went into alter shuffle mode, even though by the end I certainly wasn't actually moving fast, but I felt like I was still pushing the effort all the way to the finish line. And so I don't think I'd ever been able to do that before. And so that really was, it probably, Hellbender 2019, really, that probably was the best I've ever executed an actual race.
And just for those listening that are eagerly anticipating news of Hellbender, I believe the Run 828 Foundation is going to have more information for us come January here. So stay tuned for that. We should only be a few weeks away from finding out what's going to occur, going forward with Hellbender. So, I hope to be able to share that news with you as soon as we find out. So Sam and I are both hoping to be a part of it in the future to whatever capacity we are allowed. But and thank you, Sam, for offering to help out there as well.
Of course. It's such a fantastic race, and it's great to have a real 100-mile event as part of the local community. I just think it's spectacular. It's a great thing for the trail running community, and I definitely want to do whatever I can to contribit to that event going forward.
We certainly appreciate it, man. And I'm jealous that you have the buckle. That thing is so pretty.
It is my favorite buckle. I'll tell you that. I think I have 9 of them, and that Hellbender one is is by far my favorite. It's a good looking buckle.
Oh man! So yeah, you have how many 100-mile finishes?
I think 9. I'd have to go back and check. Yeah, because 2020 Hellbender, which I was preparing for early in the year, was going to be number 10, and obviously didn't happen. But so yeah, I think I've got 9 right now.
Right on. Cool. So that brings us to this year's project. You good to start there? Move on to there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we haven't even mentioned what Sam just did, which was outstanding and incredible. And to provide a little context, I'll let Sam talk a little bit about what he was doing this fall and what led to this new FKT that he just accomplished. So do you want to start off and tell us how this formulated and how this came about?
Sure. And I really think it does go back to the beginning of the year here. I was training for a return to Hellbender. There was a little more star power coming to Hellbender this year. It was definitely going to be a challenging title to defend, but I was going to go for it. It doesn't mean I think I could do it, but I was going to give it everything I had, and I was really training for it. And leading into it, the race is scheduled for, I think, the first weekend in April. So if you look back of where the pandemic was in early to mid-March, it was really just before the race itself when things started to change because of the pandemic and when the race actually got canceled. And so I felt like I was in peak fitness at the time and really ready to go out and race. Having said that, during the process of training, I wasn't enjoying the training as much as I have at some times in the past. The 5 a.m. weekend wake ups to go run 25 miles up the mountains in the dark and by myself, and I certainly had opportunities to, you ran miles with me and others did as well, but I wasn't enjoying it as much. And I was kind of considering this transition from competitive racing to more of just doing long solo adventures or just long adventures with friends, doing more backpacking, that type of thing. But I was already kind of thinking this leading it before the cancellations due to the pandemic. But I really wanted to. UTMB in Europe is one race that I've really wanted to run. And I, in order to do that, you have to qualify for it. And so I had this plan for 2020 to run a bunch of races, one specifically that get me qualifying points for UTMB, and try to get an automatic entry for 2021 and have that kind of be my last race that I really trained for and went for as trying to be as competitive as possible. Not that I could be competitive at UTMB, but doing what I can to push myself as much as possible. But having said that, then when things started to when Hellbender got canceled, and then it became clear that there was not going to be many other races this year, it was almost a bit of I felt like a bit of relief from it, that I didn't have to focus this time on training, and I could just continue running for the joy of running, which is really kind of the way it should be anyway. And so I felt a little bit of a weight off my shoulders, and I just kind of settled into regular runs. And then fast forwarding to the fall, I think it was early to mid-October, I backpacked the Foothills Trail with my good friends Sheridan and William. And we just did a 3-day backpack of the trail. It's 76 miles. And it was kind of during that trip, it's completely different when you're just walking instead of running, but you're still getting these long days on your feet. And I think on the second day, we were about 10 hours into this hike, and the ultra bug kind of hit me again, really for the first time since early in the year, where just that feeling of being out all day long in the mountains on the trail, and the sun is going down and you have a big climb coming up, and you just put your head down and grind. And I just really enjoyed that feeling, and it kind of put the idea in my head that I was ready to go do something long again in terms of a run. And so that was, I guess, mid-October. And I started thinking that I would like to run the Foothills Trail. I didn't really have a date picked out, or when I would do it, how much I would train for it. I just kind of wanted to do it, not necessarily do it fast. And so I had kind of just decided that I was going to do it at some point. And then it wasn't really until a couple weeks ago, I would say early December, I decided, hey, I've got this planned vacation from work coming up. Let's just take a day or two and go out and run it. And then I didn't actually pick the actual date that I ran until about a week beforehand. And so I was kind of just winging it in terms of the actual planning for doing it. But yes, that's kind of what led up to me deciding to go out and run the Foothills Trail.
That's awesome. It's really cool that you've got that bug again to do something like this. I was actually on Strava the other day, and you know how we always title our runs and try to come up with something clever. And, one of mine was I did a double, and the first one I had mentioned, the great thing about doubling is that you get to have another run that day. So you have something to look forward to. Your run's not quite over. But then you can finish your second one, and then you're like, oh, I'm done for the day. But it made me kind of long for going through the night, like that. Just what you're talking about, going out and finding that adventure again. And, I didn't put it on there because I was like, yeah, this is kind of cheesy, but I'm glad that you kind of had that feeling is what I felt. So I didn't put it on my Strava, the title, but, I know exactly what you mean. And yes, I feel that. So, you got a great kind of recon, if you will, of the trail by hiking it. Like you said, you didn't really have a plan, and things were kind of up in the air. You kind of asked Sheridan and I if we would be, up for, crewing, pacing, whatever. And, both of us were, of course, if we were available, we were, on board. And then, things changed again. Do you want to kind of describe how things came together and the way you chose to do things?
Sure. There wasn't really a whole lot of forethought to it, to be honest. I was just, I just wanted to run the route. So we backpacked it in one direction. I was going to run it in the opposite direction just to see it a little bit differently. Even I think as much as even just like a week beforehand, we were still trying to figure out how to plan logistics for shuttling cars from one end to the other and getting a pacer in and out. Just logistically, it's not an easy place to access. And it kind of just became a little more complex, and I didn't really want to ask you guys to try and figure out your own shuttling from one place on the trail to 20 miles later on the trail. And I know you would have done it, but at the same time, it kind of became more complex than I really wanted to be. And at the same time, the same thing with racing. Sometimes when I have a crew or I have people expecting me at a certain place, if I'm not on time or if I'm ahead of time, I start to worry about, are they worrying about me, or are they bored, or what if they get a flat tire out here and they're stuck out here? And rather than worrying about what others were doing, it's just kind of seemed easier to go by myself. And so I decided, like I said, it was really only a week beforehand to run unsupported. And I had never really done an unsupported run of this length before. I've certainly done backpacking, but that's different when you've got, your shelter and food and camp on your back. And it's different when you're just going running.
Yeah. Well, and I was just going to say, can you just define that? I'm sure people are starting to get used to the terminology of supported versus unsupported, but would you just define what that meant, so far as your run went?
Yeah. And I'm not somebody who's really big into the fastest known time or FKT scene. But at the same time, there's kind of two general categories: unsupported and supported. Supported is more of what you typically think of as where you might have people run with you, meet you along the way. You'll have crew, you can have pacers. You can receive aid. It's really, you're set up more like you were running a race where you just kind of run from one segment at a time and can get resupply or people run with you, whatever you want, throughout the route. Going unsupported, it is basically the opposite. You're on your own from start to finish. And I think you're not supposed to have physical aid or emotional aid. So that means even if you were technically running solo, but you had people run with you, that's still not really considered unsupported. There's different categories, and I don't know, there's official rules, but in my view, at least, that's not really an unsupported run if you've got people running with you. So really the intent was get dropped off at one end of the trail and have a car waiting at the other end of the trail, and no support, no self-support either in terms of putting drop bags or water supply or anything in the middle. It's just start with what you need on your back, knowing that that's got to get you to the finish line.
That's awesome. And just for those that may not know the Foothills Trail, can you just describe it, where it is, where is the start, terminus, all that stuff, the elevation gain? Just give them a little bit more, background on the route.
Yeah. It is I think it's 76.2 miles with 17,000 feet roughly of elevation gain. It actually depends on which direction you go. There's one side is 1,000 feet higher than the other. But it runs from along the North Carolina, South Carolina border. It starts at Oconee State Park, and the other end is at Table Rock State Park, both in South Carolina. But in between, it goes up into the North Carolina side through Gorges State Park. And it's a really, really pretty trail. I think it dates back to the 60s and 70s. The U.S. Forest Service was building it in conjunction with actually Duke Power built and maintains, or at least did maintain, a large portion of it. But yeah, it crosses over all of these really remote, rugged, fairly large rivers, and it goes up and over mountains in between them. But there's these cool suspension bridges going over these rivers. It's a very well maintained trail, despite the fact that it's really pretty remote. And it also does hit Sassafras Mountain, which is the highest point in South Carolina. And then I think that's about it.
Now this being unsupported, what was your plan for carrying food, for filtering water? What did you do in that regard?
Yeah. So I think taking a step back as well in terms of running it unsupported, I had to take a more conservative approach to it. I didn't want to be taking any risks. And like I said, it was my first time really running something this long solo. And so that meant everything from food to carrying probably a little extra than what I thought I would need, bringing a little extra warm clothes. Same thing even with the actual running of, not being too aggressive on downhills, not, tiptoeing across anything that's kind of sketchy, bringing extra emergency supplies, things along those lines that maybe if you're running with somebody else, or if you have aid in a few miles, you might be willing to take a few more risks trying to shave some time or weight from your pack. But knowing that I was on my own, I tried to avoid those risks as much as possible. And so that was kind of my general approach to the whole run, really. In terms of food and water, the food I brought it's the same way I race, and it's really, I don't necessarily recommend this. It's not really healthy, but I go completely on like Cliff Blocks and Huma gels. So I had packed, I think 18 Cliff Blocks and 18 Huma gels. And I went through not quite all of them, but most of them. And that was my entire food supply. In terms of water, there's so much water on this trail. I mean, you never go more than a few miles without seeing natural water sources. So I have this little Catadine water filter, the Be Free, that a lot of runners and hikers use. That I just filtered water whenever I needed. I had two 500 milliliter water bottles that I was filling up, and basically whenever I started, getting low on water, I would just stop to refuel.
That's awesome. You talked about how low key it was. We had gone for a run, prior to this, the weekend before. You did, a few miles with me, the Sunday before. And, you're just saying, I'm just going to go out there for a run. You knew what the FKT was for the unsupported. But, you said if that goes down, that's great. If not, it's not my intent. But did you, some people make their intentions known on the FKT site. Did you do any of that?
No, because like I said, it really wasn't my intent. I mean, I thought that the FKT was within reach. I mean, I had mentioned something, I think, on like my Instagram or Strava or something like that, I was doing it. And then I thought it could be possible, but it really wasn't a goal. I didn't feel like I felt the need to announce an intention to go after some FKT. I was really just treating this as a long solo fun run. And if I happened to come in faster than the previous unsupported FKT, so be it. But it really didn't matter that much to me, to be honest.
That's great. So, you get out there, you got your logistics sorted, and you're out there running. How is it going? It was, start to finish, run us through it.
Sure. The route, I started on the Oconee side, which is the more runnable side. And then it finishes with, I would say the bigger climbs at the end, if you go in this direction. And I chose to do it that way just because, I figured on the steep parts, regardless if it's early or late, I'm going to be hiking. They're not really runnable climbs. And so I figured if I'm going to hike anyway, let's do it at the end. And then the actual runnable portions, let's run at the beginning where I still have have it in my legs to run. So I started off with the side that's more runnable. And from that, I guess I started fairly conservatively. I mean, I wasn't pushing the pace. I was just running. And you go through this cool section along the Chattooga River. And I think that takes you through about mile 16. There's not a ton of elevation gain in that first section. There is one fairly decent sized climb. But I was just kind of running along the river and just enjoying the scenery. I saw a couple of other hikers, but not too many. And then I guess I started. I never really pushed it. I just kept on kind of running, just like I was out for a weekend run, enjoying it. started kind of doing some of the math of, not because I was looking for the FKT, but just trying to figure out times. And I don't know, it's just a way to pass time when you're running, I guess, and figuring out when I'd get to the halfway point, and kind of counting towards that, and watching the mileage tick away. There's some cool river crossings, but again, that first half is a little less eventful, I would say, than the last half. And so I got to the halfway point at, I think it was around 7 hours and 40 minutes or something like that. And there's actually a sign right on the trail that says, 38.1 miles to Table Rock and 38.1 miles to Oconee. So it's kind of a cool little halfway point sign. And so I got to that point and I was thinking it was getting close to being dark. I didn't get started until about 8:30 in the morning. Just because the logistics of when the park's open and shuttling cars back and forth. So I didn't really have that much daylight time going into it. So here I was only a little about at the halfway point, and the sun was starting to go down. I knew there was a river crossing coming up in about a mile, and I thought that would be a good place to kind of gear up for the night. And right as I was there's this long set of stairs leading down to this river. I think it's called Horse Pasture River. And there's a lot of stairs on this trail, by the way, wood stairs that are steep and slippery. And it was below freezing temps at this point. And so a lot of them are kind of covered in ice. And I was taking it really slow. I mean, holding onto the railing with one hand, trekking poles in the other hand, walking down the stairway. And I got about 3 steps from the bottom, and I just slipped, and I hit the railing hard and then fell right onto the stairs, and kind of got the wind knocked out of me a bit. I stood up and I realized, I'm like, okay, nothing is seriously hurt here. I'm fine. I've got a pretty giant bruise right now to show for it. But that was really my only fall of the day. But I took that opportunity to regroup. I put on night gear, got out the headlamp, refueled or took food from basically the back of my pack and put it into the accessible portions of the pack up front. And I spent about 15 or 20 minutes just sitting there at the river, getting kind of geared up and ready to go for the second half of the run through the night. And then from there, just kind of chugged along. The climbs start getting bigger from there. There's more big river crossings. There's one little section, I think it's between, it's from this area called the Cane Break, which is this, right by the Toxaway River crossing. You go up and over this, it's not that far. It's this short little climb, but it is just like straight up in these little wood stairs. And I think at this point I'm like 45 miles in, and it is a tough climb. And that was really the first time all day that I started to feel like I started to feel the miles at that point. But from there, you go back down, obviously, and that gets easier. And it just kind of kept cruising along. Had to stop and do some gear adjustments a couple of times, but around mile 60 or so, you kind of start heading up towards Mount Sassafras, which is the highest point on the course, and just chugged along. I felt like I was moving decent, but never really pushed the effort. Just kept moving along. And once you get over Sassafras, there was a little, you drop down into a valley, and then there's one last climb up to, I don't know what the actual name of the mountain is, but it's where Table Rock is. I don't know if it's called Table Rock or not, but there's this great viewpoint during the daytime. But there's one last climb up there. And it wasn't until this point that I started looking at my actual time on the watch and started thinking to myself that, all right, this is, I have a chance to lower the unsupported FKT by quite a bit. And so I tried to hustle down from there to get to the finish. And that was a tough 4 or 5 miles at the end. The terrain is tough. At the same time, I think like any race or any run, no matter the distance, once you have that finish line kind of in sight, your body's ready to be done. I think if I knew I was going another 20 miles, I would have been fine. But since my car was at the bottom of this hill. It was like, I'm ready to curl up and be done. So, I just kind of pushed it into the finish line there. And the funny thing about it is that there's the parking lot is actually, there's a gate that closes. So when you finish, you can't just get in your car and leave. So I knew I had my car set up in the parking lot with a sleeping bag in the back. And it was really, I mean, I'm the only one there. It's uneventful. I just stopped my watch, walked over to the car, and curled up in my sleeping bag and went to sleep.
Nice. That's amazing. So, you finished here. You said you had a really good potential of breaking the FKT. What was the end result?
So my final time was 17 hours and 27 minutes. The previous unsupported FKT was, I think, 21 and a half, somewhere around there.
So yes, you broke it quite handedly. Well done.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, it was the supported FKT though is fast. I mean, I was nowhere near that. I don't feel like I necessarily ran the route fast. I think there was quite a bit of room to bring this one down. I think Mark Lundblad, local legend, has the supported FKT, and it's something like 1450 or something like that. That's just crazy fast. I mean, I was hours behind that. And I still think with how I ran this, with the conservative approach that I took throughout, that there's plenty of room to bring this down. I feel like I could bring it down if I just even trained a little more going into it. I didn't feel like I had a huge training base. If somebody wanted to, had some decent mileage on their legs and actually wanted to take a little more aggressive approach to it, there's plenty of room to bring this unsupported FKT further down.
Right on. You talked about some of the water crossings, just so folks know. Were there many ones that did not have bridges, or did most of them have bridges?
No. So there are wooden bridges across even just the smallest of creek crossings throughout this entire route. It's very well maintained. I think it's the Foothills Trail Conservancy is the one who officially maintains the trail, if I'm not mistaken. But there's probably, I'm just guessing, maybe 100 actual little wooden footbridges throughout the trail where you cross over small little creeks and streams. And then on the big rivers, there's fairly large bridges. You don't have to, I mean, the course itself was wet from a lot of rain that had fallen, but I mean, you don't have to get your feet wet in terms of actually going through streams, wading through streams. It's very easy to avoid that here.
Awesome. Something else that we had touched on prior to you going for the run was your concern with some of the turns, especially early on in the course or when it was dark. You had, I believe, used Gaia. Is that right?
Yeah. So I had downloaded the GPX file, I think from the FKT website, and then uploaded it to Gaia on my phone. And that way I'd have a map throughout at any given time where I could check to see if I was on course. There are quite a few places where it kind of, there's just forks in the trail, as you'd expect. There's also a few places, I think going through the Gorges State Park section, where it weaves in and out of a Forest Service road where it's easy to miss a turn. I actually didn't find that it was difficult to follow this time around. I did check Gaia, I would say 4 or 5 times throughout, to make sure that I was on track when I just hadn't seen a blaze in a while or something like that. I also had with me both as a tracking device as well as an emergency backup, a Garmin InReach. That way people could track where I was. But in addition to the tracking and emergency capabilities, I did upload the route on that as well. So I had another backup in case I knew it was going to be cold and phones freeze. And I just wanted to make sure I had plenty of, I wanted to have backups for my backups, more or less.
Nice. And so, did you have to do any other type of research prior to the FKT, having done the recon hike, was there anything else that, you could perhaps provide as like a resource to folks, whether it be like a good book on the route or, maybe a good map or something? Was there anything else you might recommend?
I probably should have done more research beforehand. I really didn't. So one thing I did, I had mentioned I had backpacked the course previously, so I did know it. Generally speaking, I had seen the whole thing, but both of the people I had backpacked it with were very familiar with the route as well. My friend Sheridan, he knows the route well. He has backpacked it many times, and so I was just asking him for advice and tips, and questions about turns, things along those lines. And then likewise, William, who was also a part of our 3-person backpacking crew in October, he actually previously held the unsupported FKT on the route. Somebody else had lowered it between him and I, not by a whole lot, but so he had known the route as well. And so I was more or less relying on friends as resources as opposed to actually doing my own research, which was a very lazy approach to it, but it worked.
Research is research.
Like I said, yeah, I mean, it kind of, like I said, I never really took this thing too seriously. This was just a long run for me. I think there are better resources out there. I think there is a website dedicated to the Foothills Trail and specifically to trail running on the Foothills Trail. You could probably get maps from the Foothills Trail Conservancy. There's information on the FKT website. I just kind of winged it.
I appreciate your honesty. There is a book, which I will, put in the show notes. I do have that resource, and I will look up to see if there is a website that I can put into the show notes as well, just for those that might find interest in this trail. For those of you that know Natalie Daniels, she also had recently done this and set a women's record. For the Foothills Trail. She is an incredible individual as well, who's also completed Hellbender multiple times now. But the Foothills Trail, it's one of the South's now, one that people are seeking to do. Others being the Scar. Any interest in the Scar for you?
I don't know much about it. I've heard about it. Again, my friend William I was talking about earlier, he's done SCAR and he's talked about it. It's certainly on my radar. There's a lot of there's several, I think, routes throughout the Blue Ridge Mountains here that are in that ultra distance range, maybe more than 50, less than 100 miles, that I'm definitely interested in doing at some point. I don't know that much about the SCAR route, though.
It sounds right up your alley, then. You don't need much research. You just say, I'm just going to go do this little route tomorrow.
That's right. Just pack a big pack and start running and hope you don't get lost. That's kind of how I do it.
For those that don't know, the SCAR is basically the section of the Appalachian Trail that goes from the one border of the Smoky Mountain National Park to the other. It's a great route. Canyon Woodard, who we talked about earlier, he did it recently and a blazing fast time. Missed the FKT, but still ran an incredible time. So, but not to say that every run has to be an FKT. We're just trying to give people ideas of things they can do and challenges they can accept, in this crazy time where we may not have the races that we want to run. So, but Sam, amazing. It's a great, getting to share your story. I've really enjoyed our conversation, as I always do. And congratulations on the FKT. If people want to reach out to you, is there any which way you would say to do so, or should they just leave you alone?
I'm on Strava. You can find me just by looking up my name. I use Instagram sporadically, but Strava is probably the best way.
Okay. And it's just Sam Reid, Reed, correct?
Yep, that's right.
All right. Awesome, man. Anything else you want to add before we do we miss anything?
No, I don't think so. Definitely. Thanks for having me on the show. This has been fun.
I appreciate you putting up with me. Thanks, buddy.
Of course.
All right.
Well, I want to first thank Sam for coming on and sharing that adventure, and congratulate him once again on his FKT. Awesome job, Sam. Way to go, and congratulations. It was fun seeing that come to fruition and seeing you succeed. So awesome job, my friend. Next up, as I said in the intro, will be Kyle Curtin and our talk on his Pitchell FKT. I'd be remiss to say Kyle also broke the unsupported FKT of the Tahoe Rim Trail. So we talked just a little bit on that, but the focus is on the Pitchell FKT. So, Kyle, I really appreciate you coming on as well. And without further ado, here's Mr. Kyle Curtin. All right. Well, I am now joined by Mr. Kyle Curtin. How are you, Kyle?
Doing well.
We just had to enjoy a run here in Mills River. It's great to share those miles with you. I appreciate you coming out.
Yeah, it was a great little treat, especially after the snow we've had.
It was such a surprise to see you go after the Pitchell attempt. So I can't wait to talk about that. But you're in town right now. What brings you to town?
My parents live in Asheville. They moved here in 2015 after hiking the Appalachian Trail with my dad. Really liked the area, and so I'm back here just visiting them for Christmas.
That's fantastic. And where are you living otherwise?
In Durango, in Colorado.
Right on. We're talking about how many friends we've crossed over over time, which is pretty incredible that you and I have never actually met with how many people we do know in common. But take us back, because it was interesting to hear, and some people may have heard Kyle on Ryan Pluckelman's first podcast that he was doing. Kyle has shared a few stories with Ryan, but your running started when?
I got into long distance running like a lot of people after reading the book Born to Run, and that was about 2010 when I read the book. And so my first trail race was a 100-miler in 2012 called the Ozarks 100 in Missouri. So that's really where I got started, and had a great first 40 miles of that race or so before just death marching it in, and I was hooked after that.
That's fantastic. But then you went on to run Ozarks, did you say 3 or 4 more times?
2 more times for a total of 3, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I ran it 3 years in a row, and just improved every year, and ended up winning it the third year I ran it. So
it's a great learning curve.
Yeah, for sure.
That's fantastic. And when we were running, I asked Kyle how many hundreds he's done, and he couldn't really give me an answer, but it's upwards of past 10, if memory serves him correctly. Is that right?
Yeah, I wouldn't trust my memory, but somewhere around 10, yeah. Ultra Sign Up is a better reference than me.
That's awesome. He's done some really cool races in 100-milers, one of which was also UTMB. And you want to talk about UTMB for a second?
Sure, yeah. It was a great race. I ran it in 2018. Definitely worth the hype. And it's a really steep and definitely long race. I think more of 110 miles than actually 100.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, it went really well, and I'm pretty good at climbing, so that race suited my strengths pretty well, and ended up being second American dude that year.
That's fantastic. What were you overall?
Like 43rd, I think.
That's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And you ran, did you say just over 24?
Over 26,
just over
26 hours.
So,
finished just before sunset on that second day.
That's so cool. What was that like for you coming into the finish? Were there a huge crowd?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the whole course, there's crowds everywhere, and especially the last couple miles, there's everyone in Chamonix out on the sides. And I saw the group of friends I went there with, and they had a beer for me about a quarter mile from the finish. So I was drinking a beer on the way, crossing the finish line, and just really happy to be done and happy with the performance out there.
So you finished before dark, you said?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah, we were coming in just at dawn, and it was quiet time. So we didn't have much of a celebration at the finish, but it's still a phenomenal race. Obviously some good memories for you and for me. What you're saying that maybe you would do Ure this year. That was a thought, yeah?
Yeah, that's the one I keep looking at right now. I'm 5th on the wait list for Western States, so I'm probably going to do that one. And Ure is just like 6 weeks after. But yeah, super steep race, something like 44,000 feet a gain in that race. So that would be a little bit different. And, but definitely, it's something that intimidates me and kind of excites me. So that's always what I'm looking for in a race.
That's fantastic. Well, that's awesome. And Western and Ure, obviously, like you just said, are completely different. But I guess it's just a waiting game at this point, like most of us. What's going to happen?
Yeah, who knows? I learned my mistake trying to make plans in 2020. So.
And have you been out to Western?
I've been on the course, but not there for the race, no.
Okay, right on. And I mean, it's definitely has its up and down, but being able to move that fast, how do you feel about that? Would you rather be at Ure, or you think you still rather do Western States just because of the lure of Western?
I wish I would have done Western a couple of years ago when I was more into the running versus the hiking, but I don't know. They're definitely different challenges.
Yeah, right. Just the legend of Western States. It's hard not to want to run that race and be around that race, which is super cool. To be that close on the wait list, that's amazing. I mean, your chances are pretty good. That said, everybody probably wants to run this year if they can.
Yeah, I'm banking on getting in.
Nice. That's cool. That's very cool. We talked a little bit about how you've begun and what you've done. Would you say that the 100 is your favorite distance? Because you've also done a 200.
Definitely in that range. Yeah, I really like the longer stuff. That's really challenging in that aspect. It's definitely different once you get into nighttime and going through multiple days. But yeah, the longer stuff, 100-mile plus is definitely what I prefer.
Well, we were talking a little bit on our run about the 200. Was that's the only 200 you've done? Not that that's not enough.
Yeah, that's the only one I've done.
Right on. Uh-huh. And to clarify, you did the Tahoe 200.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, so it's most memorable because that was the year that you went up against Courtney DeWalter, which you were in the video, you said yourself that you were portrayed as the villain, and I didn't see it that way. I mean, we were, like I said, on the run, I was cheering for you because I wanted to, see you do well. But what was that like? I'm interested to hear your side of things. I mean, you've definitely, you're in the lead and, being chased. How did that feel? What was that like, especially for 200 miles? I can't imagine.
Quite the opposite. I was not in the lead for most of the race. I started out, I usually like to get in that like chase pack and just kind of hang out and let somebody else take the lead for a while. And so I was kind of running with other people for the first 30 miles or so, and then things really started to spread out, and I didn't see many people. I ended up passing the guy who was in second place. Courtney went way out in front, and I ended up passing the guy in second place around mile 55 or so, and that was getting into the sunset of the first night. And so I was in second place from mile 50 until I didn't pass Courtney until mile 181. Ooh. So I was chasing her for, somewhere around like 120 miles or so. And so that was a whole lot of the focus of the race, was just like, all right, how far back am I now? And like, what do I got to do to go on it? I had a really great crew and pacers. I mean, they ran something like 160 miles with me that race. Yeah, they all had big days.
Yeah.
But just a really cool experience. And
I'm going to ask you a few questions on the 200 miler because
sure.
That's my focus coming up is Cocodona. But so we've all had that moment where we've gone past our furthest we've ever been. What was that like? Having done 100, but knowing that now you had to do that again. Where was your mental state when you went past that barrier?
I was, I guess, mentally pretty prepared for it and not thinking, you're not at the finish line halfway through. I kind of had a reset at mile 100 where I like changed all my clothes and took some more caffeine and was like ready to go. Okay, round 2 of doing this.
Right on. Were you able to kind of stay in the moment?
Yeah, very much so. And a lot of it was new. I had never been to California before, or at least that part of it. So it's a lot of just enjoying being out on the trails. And Tahoe's a beautiful area, so it's really easy to enjoy being out there. And it's way easier to chase than to be chased. So a lot of that, like getting amped up, knowing that you're getting a little bit closer, and just getting the milestones as they come. Just how far to the next aid station, how far is this climb, and that kind of stuff. Just staying there. And they also had tracking during this race, and I had cell phone service a lot of the time too. So I was able to actually actively track to see where she was and how far back I was. Wow. And that was pretty motivating and really kept me focused.
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah, I like that. And how was, fatigue? Did the physical fatigue set in? I imagine at some point, and then there had to be lows. And so, where did you start feeling? My gosh, am I going to be able to do this, or did that ever come?
The first night felt really easy. I really was not pushing hard in the first 100 miles or so, and she actually put like a 2.5 hour gap on me about 100 miles in. I was just not pushing super hard, knowing there's still 100 plus miles to go. Right. But yeah, the second night is really where I noticed the fatigue coming in. I didn't sleep at all during this race.
Oh my gosh.
And like no 30-second breaks and nothing like that.
Wow.
And that second night, I was like hallucinating and really just seeing all kinds of weird stuff.
Oh my gosh.
And I felt really pretty good until I caught her at mile, like I said, 181, I think. Mm-hmm. And then it just felt like I hit a wall. That like accomplishing that goal of catching her and still having a marathon to go or so is really tough to push, and knowing that she was still going to be chasing me and she was still going to be pushing. So the roles reversed, and it became very difficult in that last marathon or so.
Yeah. I mean, the mental switch kind of changes. That's got to be a tough adaptation that late in the race, and how tired you were.
Yeah, it became I was running scared versus being the chaser.
Right. Oh my God. You also have an Army background too. Did they do any type of training like that, like with sleep deprivation? Did you guys go through that in like boot camp or any of that?
Yeah, definitely at times. I don't know how relevant that is for 100-mile training.
I'm just wondering if you've ever been in that type of state before.
Not to that point. No, nothing.
Yeah.
I've never been that bad before. I remember hallucinating on my first 100-miler going through the night, and then I don't think I've had those kind of things happen until Tahoe 200. Then, I mean, everything was moving except for that pinpoint on the trail I was looking at. There's like tunnel vision, and then the grasses were moving, the trees were pulsing, and seeing faces on rocks and that kind of thing.
Were you still able to concentrate on I need a gel right now, or I need some food right now? Or?
That's really where the crew came in, and Pacers like asking me the last time I ate and that kind of thing. It definitely becomes difficult to eat, but had some really good crew.
Good. How much caffeine did you have to have at that point?
Grams. It was a lot.
Just popping espresso beans.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So now you're in the 180s. How are the legs doing? I mean, Tahoe's definitely, you've got elevation and you've got elevation change. How are you feeling?
It was a lot of walking, especially at that point in the race. This is one of the weird years where they ran it backwards from what they usually do. So somewhere around that mile 180 mark, you're on the Jeep Rubicon Trail, which is like where they take these, big Jeeps over these little drops. And so there are all kinds of 2 or 3 foot drop downs that were just terrible on the legs. And then this real fine, powdery rock that really got into the toes. I mean, those last 20 miles are pretty memorable for being difficult. Yeah. And I was able to run just a couple steps just because I was scared of getting caught again, but it was a lot of hiking on the way in.
Yeah.
I remember they also had another shorter race going on that day that finished that I finished the race in 49 hours and change. And they had another race that was finishing right around the same time. So there were all these super fast, fresh people flying by me. And I couldn't really tell. They had bibs on. So you'd see somebody coming behind you and like, oh, is this her? Is this where she's going to get me? But I was able to run. And it finishes on a ski hill. So it's like a 2,000-foot descent. It was just...
Wow.
Oh
my gosh.
There's a special place in hell for races that end with those huge descents like that.
Oh, my God. I can't imagine. How are your feet? Did your feet hold up?
Yeah, I did pretty good. I can't remember being too messed up.
No blisters or...
I'm sure there were blisters. I can't remember anything too bad.
Okay.
I remember just after crossing the finish line, just everything cramping up and just not being able to walk. And had two of my crew people like on either side of me walking from like the finish line back to the car where I took a nap after the finish. And I remember being pretty funny. The one guy's about my height and then the other guy's about a foot taller than me. So he was like hunched over, holding me up.
Oh my gosh. Did you have to do anything to help manage the feet with all the dusts and stuff like that? Did you do anything particular?
Not really. I started out with a pair of road shoes that had some had some mesh uppers that the fine dust was getting in. So I had to switch shoes to something I wasn't planning on using, but no, it worked fine. Yeah, everybody had to deal with it. So.
Yeah. Did you wear gaiters or anything like that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, right on. What type of socks do you usually wear?
I switch between. I really like Darn Tough socks. I really got hooked on those while hiking the Appalachian Trail. Right. I think they're pretty solid. And then some Injiji toe socks. Okay. Usually switching between those two. Cool. I don't have a whole lot of issues.
Nice. Good. Yeah, the Darn Tough's a great little Vermont brand. Nice wool. So very good. I'm looking at your socks now.
I think I got something else on today. Yeah.
All good. That's simply amazing. So we'll fast forward now. So you came and you took on Pitchell. And my recent podcast with Tori Greaves talked about her FKT on Pitchell, but we'll kind of start with what made you think of Pitchell and what brought that about?
I think our mutual friend Doug Daniels was the first one to bring it up to me a few years ago. So I met Doug during Quest for the Crest 50K a few years ago, and every time I come back here to visit parents, he used to live in this area, and we'd go out on a run and chat about what the cool things to do in the area were, and he talked about Pitchell quite a bit. So that was on the radar. And then my dad does a lot of trail work in the area, and he maintains a lot of the trails on the Mountain to Sea Trail that connects the two mountains. So that kind of made it a little special and something that I always wanted to do. And
that's awesome. Just so people listening, if you've not heard of Pitchell, Pitchell is roughly just over 100K. Elevation varies based on watch, but what did you get? I usually hear about 16,000.
Yeah, my watch said 14,000.
Yeah, so anywhere from 14 to 16,000 depending on the watch.
Yeah.
It traverses from Mount Pisgah to Mount Mitchell, which Mount Mitchell is the iconic mountain because it's the tallest peak east of the Mississippi. So a lot of the routes, I don't know if you've heard of some of the fun stuff that's been going on here, but we now have Archel, which you and I were talking about, Art Lobe. So you start out on the Art Lobe and hit the Mountain to Sea, and then do over to Pisgah, and then do Pitchell, which is roughly 100 miles. And then another one is Gritchell, which is Grandfather Mountain, over to Mount Mitchell, which is, again, roughly 100 miles. So we're getting all sorts of itchels. So you, how much did you get to see this course prior to actually doing it?
I've gone up Pisgah with Doug before, and I've done some small sections, I think more in like the Folk Art Center, and then I'd been up like the Quest for the Crest area, and that is it the Black Crest?
Yep.
So I've seen some of it, but definitely less than I thought once I was out on course. A lot of it looked unfamiliar.
Yeah,
once I was out there.
You said you took a few wrong turns, but they were pretty minor.
Nothing more than a couple minutes where I had to turn back.
Mostly at road crossings, or?
The road crossings, and then there was one later on the way up to Walker Knob. There there's the one trail that went up to the road, and I didn't see the switchback that the Mountain to Sea Trail stayed on that went back down.
Yep.
So that one I think was my longest, and that probably took 3 minutes or so of wondering where I was.
Gotcha. How did you realize you were off? You just didn't see the white blaze? Or
I had the route downloaded to my watch, so I was looking to make sure I was on track, and it would give me a little notification if I was off. And then so I was wondering, all right, where's it go from here?
Which watch were you using?
We're the Cinto 9 with a barometer in it, and it's super powerful watch, and does all this fun stuff, all the gadgets.
Yeah, Walker Knob's a pretty neat area. There's an old airplane wreckage up there.
Oh, cool.
Not too far off the trail. But it's tough. That's that last section. We'll talk about that. But you had a number of challenges for this run. Were you were able to drive up to Pisgah?
No.
So how'd that go?
No. I think it was Route 151.
151, yes.
Yeah, it took me about 4 miles from the summit. So I had about a 4 mile, 1,500-foot hike to get to the start. And so I did that in just about an hour or so. And I mean, just starting out.
Right.
Had a 2:30 wake up.
Oh, God.
And then drove about a half hour or so to get to the end of 151 where the route was closed, and then another hour hike in. So I woke up at 2:30 and didn't get started on the actual Pitchell till almost 5.
Okay. Oh my gosh. So how was, for those of you that don't know, our area was just hit by snow and ice, but you got ahead of that storm, but how was it up on Pitchell when you got up there?
It was totally good.
Pisgah, excuse me. It was good. Yeah. So
yeah.
The temperature was okay.
Yeah, I mean, as good as you can expect on. Yeah. I did it on the winter solstice.
Nice.
So the shortest day of the year. But yeah, as much as good as you can hope for anyway.
Right on. So how far down was the parkway closed?
It was closed right at 151, so you couldn't actually get on the parkway at all. Okay. And I think I could have made it a little shorter if I would have known which trail to take up to Pisgah, but stayed on the parkway all the way into the parking lot.
Gotcha.
And it was almost 4 miles up to the summit of Pisgah.
And then did you have a crew along the way?
My dad was the only crew I had, and he drove out. We left the house right around 3 o'clock, so he was out there all day with me. And he's stayed at 151 at the end of that, and then was crewing the rest of the day as much as possible.
Nice. That's great. What did you carry? How did you go about it? Did you have a pack, handhelds? Which way did you take it?
Had a little bit of everything. So I started out with a pack for that first hike up, and then run back down to the car, and then just swapped out some bottles there. And then it was about 18 miles before getting down to the river. And from there, there's about a 20-mile segment where I could see my dad often enough. I was just carrying a handheld all the way through the Folk Art Center, all the way to Ox Creek Road. Yep. And there, I think I took a pack. And then that's actually where the parkway was closed from there on out. And brought my mountain bike out, and my dad biked in on the Blue Ridge Parkway. He had something like a 7 mile, 1,500-foot bike ride to get up to Potato Field Gap, I think is the name of that. Yep. So he biked up there with another pack and had something like 90 ounces of water and the food I needed to do the rest of the run and get down to the campground at the end. So it's definitely like a little more hectic than a normal Pitchell route as far as crewing and that stuff goes.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. Yeah, well, we'll talk about the end here in a little bit because that's a story in and of itself. But the beginning is it's coming down Pisgah is it's rocky. You're probably coming down. You said around 5 a.m. So it's still a little bit dark, right?
Yeah, totally in the dark.
But how were the rocks? Were they dry or were they wet?
They're mostly dry, I think. Yeah. I mean, I was still tired. I didn't sleep well the night before, and I fell like 3 times in the first 3 miles of starting the Pisgah. But those are my only falls of the whole day. I feel like I kind of woke up after.
It's probably one of the more kind of technical sections of the trail up there with all the rocks. And then you got onto Shut-In, which brings you down to the river. That was pretty uneventful. Yeah,
I mean, those are just smooth, fast miles, all downhill. So,
and I didn't get to quite go through the Strava data, but did you have any crowns coming down from Strava?
No, I think there's enough fast people around here. No, I ran almost exactly the same splits as Sean Pope's time, all the way down to the river. I think Strava said we were within 20 seconds of each other.
Wow.
On that segment.
Yeah. So you knew where Sean was, and you knew.
Yeah, I was definitely tracking that the whole way.
Oh, cool. Mm-hmm. Nice. And then the next section is it's smooth and runnable all the way to full cart.
It's very fast. Yeah.
How'd you feel through that section?
Great. Yeah. I was doing 8-minute miles and change through there. Yeah. Sweet. Super fast, and just a handheld, and seeing my dad every couple miles, and
cool.
He was real smooth with transitions, just swapping bottles and keep moving.
And that puts you at full cart, which is halfway. So you're at halfway now. How are you on the FKT pace?
I think by the time I got to the full cart center, just like maybe a minute or two under Pope's time.
Okay.
So almost tied with him through there.
Yeah. Nice. Right on. The back half is, I mean, that's where
that's all the climbing. Yeah.
That's where everything happens. And so the higher elevations, as you start to get towards Mitchell, those can have a lot more ice. What were you finding as you got closer to Mitchell? Was there any ice?
Not a ton of ice. Like near Walker Knob area, that was probably the iciest area. And there were small sections of it where it was a little sketchy, but nothing too bad. I'd gone up to Pinnacle Lane Point a couple days before to check out the snow. And it had melted a fair amount from the few days before I'd gone up there. But snow wasn't a huge issue. There was snow on the trail for sure. Yeah. But it was still pretty soft at higher elevations. It wasn't real icy for the most part. There were a couple spots where it had melted and refroze on the trail, but it wasn't too bad until coming off of Mitchell.
And I mean, you've done UTMB, which is pacerless, so you're used to being, without pacers for long periods of times. How is that being alone on this route?
Yeah, I guess I'm pretty comfortable with it. Most of the things I've done this year have been solo between COVID and just,
Are you a music guy or?
Yeah. Been into Mac Miller a lot recently, so a lot of that. And since the parkway is closed, there's almost nobody. It was pretty notable I saw somebody up on Walker Knob, and when I saw him, I kind of yelled at him like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" But yeah, for the most part, didn't see anybody else.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I mean, especially the Mountains to Sea is such a well-traveled trail to not see many people.
Yeah, when little snowstorm, I think, scared a lot of people off.
Yeah, for sure. And Craggy can be a mess too. Was everything good through there? Because that can be super wet at times. Craggy, there's when you come through there, there's a lot of rock. It's like probably the second rockiest section. It's before you get to Graybeard. Let's see. So after Potato Hill and all that, you go through Rattlesnake Lodge. All that,
I do remember that. Yeah.
And then there's a turn off for what's the waterfall? But anyhow, it's super rocky. But if you're not remembering anything, that's probably good.
Yeah, I think that area had a lot of snow on top of it, and I think I remember being pretty thankful that it hadn't melted and refroze, and I was still able to get some good traction going over the snow and stuff. But a lot of that was hiking too. It's just so steep and technical that you're not moving that fast. So.
Did you have anything for your feet, like any Catula or anything like that, just in case?
No. I brought trekking poles. I took them at Ox Creek Road and had those the rest of the way, and definitely needed. But no, I was fine with
just shoes.
Just shoes. Yeah.
Cool. So now we've gotten up. Walker Knob is I love that section. It's so pretty up there, and then you get onto the entrance road for Mitchell, and then it's actually a nice little kind of old road bed or railroad bed. Which you were able to move well through that section.
Yeah, the Bunkum Trail.
Yes.
Yeah, that was. There's almost no running on Walker Knob going through that. Even on the downhill through there, it's just so rooty, and there was a little bit of ice coming off of Walker Knob. So that was pretty slow, and it was really a pretty big relief once you got to Bunkum Road. I was able to run, some sub 10-minute miles through there. So yeah, that was really nice. And especially once you get there, it's a mile of of climbing to get to the top of Mitchell. So it's like, all right, just got to push through this flat runnable section, and then you can walk the rest of the way up.
It's always funny to look forward to the walking sections. But and so you get up, going up Mitchell. Where were you at that point so far as time on the FKT?
I know going into Potato Field Gap, I had a 17-minute lead on Pope's time. So I think I got most of that on that climb up Pinnacle Lane. Right before that, I was just 2 or 3 minutes ahead. So put a little bit of gap going up to Pinnacle Lane, and then from there, 17 minutes up, and I think I finished 32 minutes ahead of Pope's time. So
that's beautiful. Wow.
Yeah, on the climbing stuff is definitely where I made my money.
So you finished on top of Mitchell. The park's closed. Yeah.
Yeah, nobody's up there. It's just had a wind warning that evening. So about like 40, maybe 50 miles an hour winds up there when I was up there. And
your dad didn't go up there, did he?
No.
Okay.
No. Yeah, there's nobody up there. Took a little video, took a picture, and I was like, I don't know what else to do. I guess I'll go back down now.
So you had a hike down the old Mitchell Trail down to the Black Mountain Campground.
Yeah, it's about 5.5 miles and like 3,500 feet down to get down there. And that was the worst trail of the whole thing as far as ice and stuff goes. It had all melted and refrozen. And I mean, especially at the top, the trail is just a riverbed of ice.
Yeah.
And I remember the first third of a mile took me 20 minutes. I was like pretty wrecked from the run, but then just like, oh man, I was not prepared to just ice skate down.
Jeez. So 4 mile hike in and a 6.5 mile hike out. Mm-hmm. So you've added 10 miles onto the day.
Yeah. And we were debating whether or not to bring a headlamp on that. So I had to get it at Ox Creek, Potato Field Gap. As I was saying, no, I don't need a headlamp, and my dad ended up throwing one in there, and I was pretty glad he did because that descent took me about an hour longer than I was expecting.
Oh my gosh! Oh, well, good for Dad. Good for him having the foresight of that. So your dad saw you at Ox Creek. That was the last time you saw him
in the car, and then he mountain biked up to Potato Field Gap on the Parkway.
And then Potato Field was the
last time I saw him, which is about 17 miles from the summit.
Right, and then you had another 6, so you had almost a marathon.
Yeah, about.
Yeah. Were you okay? Like you had enough to get you down?
Yeah, I was all good as far as food and water stuff. That really planned that out pretty well.
Good. And you finished. You said obviously you were a little tired, but legs were okay to get you down.
Yeah, it was much more the trail slowing me down than. Messed up legs.
Okay. That's amazing. So you got back down to Black Mountain Campground. Dad met you there?
Uh-huh.
Oh, wow. Gosh. That's a good drive, too, especially with all the closures. So,
we thought the timing would be pretty close. If I could call him at the top of Mitchell to tell him when I was done, then from his house down to the campground, hopefully be about the same amount of time as me getting down. But it took me longer than I thought. So he ended up hiking up with a headlamp, too, and met me about a mile from the car.
That's cool.
And walked down together.
Originally, you were going to go after it on Tuesday, but you decided to go to Monday. Was it just because of the incoming weather?
I just thought the solstice was a better day to do it, kind of special day. And
that's cool.
And
what was your last event prior to Pitchell? What was the last big effort you had done?
Let's see, the last real race kind of effort, I did the Tahoe Rim Trail, unsupported.
Right.
In, that was July 3rd. I started that. Yeah, it was a 171-mile loop.
Right. And how'd that go?
It went great. Yeah, did it totally unsupported, so I carried everything I needed right from the start, and broke the unsupported record by about 10 hours, I think.
Nice.
And it was just a couple hours off Killian's supported record.
It seems like so many people have gone for that Tahoe rim this year between supported and unsupported. So and you're still holding that.
I think that's a pretty solid unsupported record.
Yeah.
I'd be pretty impressed if that went down.
That's amazing to do unsupported. So, if you don't mind, we can touch on that one too.
Sure.
So, how much of that was on the Tahoe 200 course?
A fair amount of it. The Tahoe 200 course couldn't go through any of the wilderness areas, and then they wanted to make it 200 miles. So they did this weird bump out where they went through that Jeep Rubicon Trail area, and then they couldn't go through the Desolation Wilderness area, which is just a beautiful section. It's very worthwhile to run through. And then they did some funny stuff to go to aid stations. But I'd seen probably 70-80% of it.
Wow.
Before going out there.
That's pretty cool. It's amazing. So 171 miles. And what's your elevation gain on that?
Somewhere over 30,000 feet, 35,000, something like that.
Oh God! And what was your? How big was your pack for an unsupported venture like that?
I took the Ultimate Direction PB vest, so I think that's something like a 15-liter pack.
Yeah.
And had I counted up right around 10,000 calories I was taking with, and then had a water filter that I used for some of the time before I got too lazy to filter the water anymore. And then just a light jacket and some buffs. But it was very minimal.
Man, that's incredible. So it's 10,000 calories. What does that look like for you?
A lot of it was stuff to mix in with the water, so a lot of Tailwind and Noon, and then some gels and candies. Snickers are always good.
Yeah. What's the most dense thing that you carry? Calorie dense?
Oh, these Star Crunch things. They're Crunch. I don't know. They're, let's see, something we can reference. Maybe smaller than like a hockey puck.
Okay.
And they're like 350 calories. They're super dense. I don't know. Snickers are tough to beat too, though.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
like 250 calories for something like that. It's pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, you're carrying, how much would you say your pack was weighing?
I think it was just over 10 pounds without any water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
and what were you carrying, like body bottles or?
I had one big, the Be Free filter.
Okay.
So I had a 1 liter with that, and then I had a half liter of body bottle, the soft bottles.
The soft bottles.
And then so I only had 1.5 liters of fluids at any one time.
Okay. Man, it's, the poles, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and were those constantly in your hands?
Most of the time, yeah. I mean, the poles I use are like super lightweight, so I just
what do you use?
The Ultimate Direction FKT poles,
Yeah.
they're something like 6 ounces a piece.
Right.
They weigh almost nothing
And they're rigid,
throw them in
right?
your hand. Yeah,
Yeah, they don't
non-collapsible
break
at
down.
all. Yeah.
Okay.
So they're not too bad.
Yeah. That's crazy. Oh my God. I'm just trying to get that through my head that you just did all that by yourself. That's incredible. You, and what, I can't even wrap my brain around. How long did that take?
I think, I can't remember, just over 40 hours, maybe
Just over
40,
40.
15 or something like that.
Jeez.
So I started at like 6 a.m. on July 3rd, and I was going after Killian's record, so I was hoping July 4th to get the record back to an American, but didn't quite pull that off, so finished a little bit after sunset on July 4th.
Would you think you would do it supported and see if you could go after that record?
Guy Adam Kimball broke it
right,
a couple weeks after me, so he stole that thunder. Yeah.
That's incredible. God. So what did Adam run?
He, I think 37.5 hours.
Oh, God. That's incredible.
So, he got my time by almost 3 hours, I think.
Right, but supported.
And got Killian's time by like 45 minutes or so.
What made you decide to go unsupported? You just felt
Again,
it'd be easier,
well, I haven't done a great job of planning things out in 2020. So between like finally deciding to go after this and just not wanting to deal with crew and pacers, just to simplify everything.
Sure.
That was the biggest reson. Just not wanting to
have a bunch
make
of people
it more
around
complicated.
And, I get that. That's cool. Man. I know it's a big step from something like Tahoe to something like the Appalachian Trail, but any thoughts of like long trail like that? Not necessarily Appalachian Trail, but something that may pique your interest, like Colorado Trail or something?
I crewed a buddy who broke the Colorado Trail this summer.
Wow.
And I don't know, always looking at other stuff. Saw the Arizona Trail, FKT, was looking at that earlier. Maybe it was yesterday. So always looking at these. Last year I was planning on, or I guess it's still this year, in 2020, I was planning on hiking the Pacific Crest Trail up to Western States to run that. So that's kind of in the back of my mind as a maybe too.
Oh, wow. That's so cool. My God. So something like Tahoe, you finished this 170 miles. How did you feel afterwards? I mean, were you, because we went for a run today, and like you said, you felt great and fine. I mean, Pitchell is a hard effort, but I can't imagine something like Tahoe. How did that feel after?
It's definitely a tiredness. I mean, it's a slow effort. You're doing like 14, 15-minute miles, I think is what I averaged. So it's not quite the pounding you get like from running a marathon. You don't get that high impact. But, I mean, just staying up for 40 hours running and moving, that wears on you, and that takes a while to recover. But I don't know. Also, it seems like the more of these I do, the easier it is to recover from them. So
Sure. Yeah. Man, that's incredible. Oh, my God. So you obviously geared down for a little while. And then what does your average week look like so far as training? Like, what kind of, do you go by time? Do you go by mileage? What do you do?
I just kind of look at it all. I like to look at time and elevation gain and mileage. And I do a lot of cross training too. I do a fair amount of mountain biking and skiing and that kind of stuff. So in like an ideal week, I'll run like 60 to 70 miles or so and then add in a few hours of mountain biking or skiing. Cool. But I feel pretty comfortable somewhere between like 15 and 20 hours of like endurance work a week.
Yeah. Do you shoot for a elevation gain? Is there like a benchmark that you shoot for, or you just whatever comes?
Yeah, I like to get a lot of gain. During the summertime, we were trying to get 100,000 feet a month, which I never ended up doing just with running. Had to get some biking in there to get over that. But next year, trying to get 1 million feet in the year. That's a goal I'd like to do. I think I'll get right around 900,000 this year. So just a little bump up for next year.
That's fantastic. And we were talking on the run, and it made me smile. You said that most of your workouts are chasing Strava segments.
It's just something that motivates me for sure. Yeah, if doing like a tempo run or something like that, it's way easier for me to get motivated to go after a couple mile segment versus going on a track or a river path or something like that.
Sure. That's great. Do you do any type of speed intervals or anything like that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I coach our local running club doing track Tuesdays out in Durango.
Nice. And
I like to do those kind of workouts, and then usually 1 or 2 a week, some kind of tempo and then some kind of shorter interval.
Do you ever do any like shorter road races or anything like that to spice things up?
I haven't recently. Every winter I've been telling myself I'll train and run a marathon this winter, and I haven't done it yet. So,
it's hard to drag.
Maybe this year will be the year I do.
Yeah. It's hard to drag yourself out for a road race. Oh man, have you done a road marathon previously?
The last one I ran Boston in 2013. The year it got bombed.
Oh my gosh!
So,
did you finish prior to the bombing?
I did. Yeah. I was done a couple hours before the bombing,
good.
Maybe an hour and a half or so.
Okay, so where did that put you?
242. Still my
your PR?
Marathon PR.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So I don't think I can beat that right now either. So that's another thing. Like, ooh.
I hear you. I hear you. That's awesome though. And so Durango, it's you came from the East Coast, grew up in Ohio, you said.
Yeah.
What do you find about Durango, like the atmosphere there? It sounds like you've got a great group of people. Sounds very conducive to training. So
yeah, definitely an outdoor-oriented community. Lots of good trail runners and just outdoor enthusiasts. It's very humbling to be there. Any sport you do, you can get beat. Like I can't win a 5K in Durango. There's always some somebody who's faster than me and stronger. So it's cool to be a part of a community that really embraces the outdoors and really training in these long distance runs.
And you've gotten into coaching too. You're coaching obviously runners, but do you coach anything else?
I got started taking ski clients this winter.
That's cool.
So yeah, it's definitely an exciting progression.
That's awesome. How long have you been coaching?
For about 4 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, very good. And what's your background in mountain biking? Because you said you do a lot of mountain biking.
Just for fun, mostly getting friends to drag me out for the most part. But I really enjoy. The same reason I like long distance running. You get to explore and see parts of the world that are very difficult to see. And mountain biking is kind of just another access to doing that. And so like biking the White Rim, I did that this year in Utah. It's like a 100-mile route that it'd be very painful. People do run that, but it's a lot easier to do it on a bike. And I just enjoy getting out and seeing these kind of things.
Do you strength train as well? Do you do anything?
Definitely.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What type of things do you do?
do like 2 different kinds of workouts mostly. I do one like muscular endurance workout stolen from Uphill Athlete. It's a book and a training program. Just involves a lot of lunges and step ups and that kind of stuff, mostly body weight, sometimes just a small amount of weight.
Okay.
And then I do like a heavy lift where either like a hex bar deadlift or a squat, and kind of focused around a superset of that. But those 2 workouts are most of my strength training.
Awesome. And do you have a website?
Nope.
No. Okay. What's the easiest way for people to connect with you?
I'm on all social media, but with the tag, my last name, Curtin 103. I started wrestling when I got that, or I was wrestling at the time in a 103-pound weight class. So I've gotten bigger since then, but
Curtin, right?
Correct.
Okay, just so people spell it correctly.
Yep.
So Curtin 103?
Yep.
All right, that's your tags. Anything we're remiss to not say?
I don't know. Merry Christmas.
And Happy New Year. Thank you so much for the time here, Kyle. I really appreciate you coming over and sharing the story here.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations once again to both runners, Sam Reid and Kyle Curtin. Amazing jobs, amazing FKTs. Really cool to see people pushing the boundaries. I just really appreciate their time and them coming on. So thank you guys. In other news, as we approach the new year here, 2021 is finally upon us. Lots of things coming up. I've got some things that I'm working on the back burner, but on the front burners, I'm taking on another coach in Thad McNeil. If you get my newsletter, you were introduced to Thad. So things are getting updated, website, etc., with Thad's information. Thad is a very young and enthusiastic runner. Really love his energy. He's really good at coaching people from 50K down. I hope to kind of help him and mentor him through his coaching process and give him some insights and ideas, and hopefully give him some further strengths at the longer distances. But if you're looking for a new coach, and want to reach out to us, my email is runningpains@gmail.com, and Thad's email is mrrunningpainsthad@gmail.com. We'll also have links on our website, mrrunningpains.com, that you can reach out to either of us for coaching. Just really excited to have Thad on board. And we'll have a podcast with Thad so he can introduce himself and kind of talk about his philosophy and methodologies. So Thad will be an upcoming guest. I also have another episode coming up with Miriam Saloom, my resident physical therapist on this podcast. We're doing a focus on knees, and a special on knees and what can go wrong on the knee, what you can do to keep your knees healthy, even some things that potentially could go wrong with things that are out on the market right now. We're going to dive into some current research and talk about some things that might potentially hurt you. So stay tuned for that. Also been requested to do a podcast about running with your dog. When should you start? How should you do it? So I'm working on that. That's another one in the works. So got quite a few podcasts coming up. So stay tuned for those. As I mentioned just a little bit earlier, my newsletter just came out. So I did a January newsletter that can be found on mrrunningpains.com. You can subscribe there as well. But all of my newsletters and podcasts are archived there on the website. So you can subscribe to the newsletter there. If you want to subscribe to the podcast, you can do so on your favorite listening platform. I host on Podbean, BEAN.com. So you can subscribe on podbean.com or iTunes, there. It's hopefully on all the platforms. So, please subscribe, leave a review, share it if you would. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. I certainly am. It's really opened up a lot of doors. My focus was just to try to give back to the sport that's given me so much, and this was a great way to kind of take that avenue. So really enjoying that. Races are kind of coming and going. We're seeing some still happening. Looks like it's basically up to the permitting entity as to whether they're going to happen or not. As for myself, I'm supposed to race January 9th at the South Mountains 50K. So hopefully I'll see some of the North Carolina and Southeast folks out there. If you see me and you want to say hey, please, stop by and give me a hey, how you do? I'd love to meet you and talk with you. Those of you that have ideas for the podcast, please reach out. Again, runningpains@gmail.com is my email. People have been asking questions on Strava, which is awesome. I'm Aaron Saft, MR Runningpains on Strava. So, by all means, ask away. My Facebook page, MR Runningpains Coaching. I post a lot of stuff on there. Trying to post some more helpful articles and stuff like that on that site, so you can follow along on the Facebook page. And I'm also MR Runningpains on Instagram. The YouTube channel. It's been a busy holiday here, but we are. My son and I are working on a few videos to post up on there. I've had a few requests for videos, so subscribe to the channel. The podcast can also be found on YouTube, so subscribe to the channel, and you'll know when I upload an episode. They usually launch. Well, they always launch on Thursday morning at 6 a.m. So Thursday 6 a.m. podcast is always coming out. I certainly appreciate Ultra Running Magazine for posting the podcast every now and again in their e-newsletter. That's pretty awesome. I appreciate you guys, obviously, for tuning in and listening. I am probably, after the new year here, going to open up to Patreon, kind of help with some of the costs. I have my remote recording platform does cost money. If you're able to and want to contribute $1 a month or whatever you can do, I certainly do appreciate that. Like I said, after the first of the year, I'll probably have that. So after this episode, I'm gonna open it up to donations and offset some of these costs that I'm incurring for putting on the podcast, maintaining the website, all that good stuff. It really is helpful. Never hope to make money off this podcast, but hopefully want to make it sustainable so I can keep it going and keep bringing the episodes to you. If you have ideas for guests, again, let me know. Ideas for podcasts, episodes. Obviously, I've got a number of ideas and things that are coming up, but always up for ideas and new conversations. So if you'd like to be a guest, that's great too. Let me know your story and love to hear from you. Other than that, like I said, if you're looking for coaching, my information is on the website. Got Thad coming on board, so we're growing, and I'm excited. So hopefully I can be a part of your process. So if you're interested in that conversation, again, please reach out. And I want to wish everybody a very happy New Year. Thank you guys for tuning in, for being a part of this, for growing with me. I'm just about to hit 7,000 downloads. Haven't quite reached 52 episodes or a year worth of episodes yet, but I mean I'm really happy with the progress of this podcast. So, and that wouldn't happen without you guys. So sincerely, thank you very much. I hope 2021 brings everybody a much, much happier and brighter year. We get back to some racing. Like I said, I have some more exciting news to bring forward. As I'm able to, I'll share that with you. So, until then, keep running, my friends. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll talk to you next week.